News 8 at 5 starts now.
A bottle is thrown. A tear gas canister is fired. A crowd closes in. Violence then ensues. These are moments that develop and, frankly, dissipate in the blink of an eye.
No citizen has a right to destroy, vandalize, or threaten another Hoosier's safety or property.
New at 5 o'clock, a city cleaning up after days of protests that erupted into violence. And even as protests continue into downtown tonight, Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett imposing an 8 p.m. curfew for the second night in a row.
This as he also expresses serious concerns about interactions between officers and protesters this weekend. We have more team coverage for you tonight. First, let's get to News 8's Richard Essex in the newsroom. Richard, the officers' actions are now under investigation.
We understand, but at 8:30 Sunday night, I spotted several protesters gathered at the intersection of Washington Street and Pennsylvania. And while I was headed down towards that crowd, police were also right nearby, and they were headed in the same direction. Police had ordered them to stop, and a few of them did. Others ran. Now, using my cell phone, I was rolling when the protesters started running. Police had ordered 2 women to the ground, and they didn't comply. You can hear one officer say, "Light her up," and that's when another officer instantly shot her with rubber bullets. The woman still refused the officer's commands, and that's when she was hit repeatedly on the legs with a baton. Now, the city has endured unprecedented violence, looting, and civil unrest. The citywide curfew had been in effect for 30 minutes at this point. Protesters and others in the immediate downtown area had been warned several times either go home or face arrest.
One of these videos shows force being used during an arrest of several individuals. I have directed our internal affairs unit to immediately conduct a speedy and thorough investigation into this incident. While I don't have enough information yet to make a determination on any disciplinary action, I can tell you that this type of incident is exactly the type of incident that the new Use of Force Review Board we are creating is aimed at reviewing.
The chief didn't say if any of the officers involved had been placed on leave pending the internal investigation. Now, earlier today, Mayor Joe Hogsett was in the Wish TV studios. One of our questions to him was, have there been complaints about police acting too aggressively towards protesters or the rioters been involved downtown? Now, you'll hear from the mayor coming up at 6 o'clock. In the newsroom, Richard Essex, Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook.
All right, Richard, thank you for that. And the countywide curfew bans people from traveling on public roads or being in public places. To help make sure people are off the roads, INDOT and police have closed several interstate ramps to help state police and Indianapolis with the curfew. Here's a look at the map if you want a visual of all of this. I-70 westbound to Fletcher, Ohio, and Michigan. I-65 southbound to those same roads. I-65 northbound to Washington Street, and I-65 north and southbound to MLK.
Meanwhile, Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears announcing that he will not file charges against dozens of nonviolent people who were arrested both Friday and Saturday nights. Wish TV's Dan Klein sat down with Mears this afternoon. Joins us now live in the circle with more. Dan?
Yeah, Phil, so in total, 41 people will have their charges dropped because they were not injuring people and harming people or doing damage to property. But there were 14 people who broke into businesses and stole items who will be charged with burglary and Mears says his office makes each decision on a case-by-case basis. He also says he talked with the police department in advance and told them it was unlikely for his office to file charges against people who were purely protesting.
Me, it's 2 different classes of people who were down there, the individuals who were there to further the discussion and make a point about some of the issues that we have in the criminal justice system. I not only appreciate, but I welcome that discussion, and I don't think it's fair to penalize those individuals for exercising their constitutional right. However, there's no right to destroy other people's property.
Now, many of the arrests that were made would be on charges like disorderly conduct, and while that is a misdemeanor and usually would not be handled by his office so quickly, because the cases are often connected to other people with more serious charges, they were immediately forwarded to the prosecutor's office. Now, we asked Police Chief Randall Taylor about his decision, Mears' decision. We'll have his answer coming up, all new at 6 o'clock. And I'll also tell you about the curfew violations from tonight and any from last night as well as from any for tonight and how they will be handled by the prosecutor's office. For now, they're reporting live. Dan Klein, Wish TV, wishtv.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook.
Dan, thank you. And so far today, no arrests at the protest this afternoon. The march has been peaceful. News 8's Aaliyah Hodges walked along with the protesters, listened to their message. She joins us now live on Monument Circle, not far from where we just saw Dan. Aaliyah, good evening.
Now, today is the 4th day of protesting. At least 100 people are here demonstrating very peacefully. You can just take a look at a lot of people just sitting down at the Monument Circle, listening to Black Lives Matter speak. And originally, earlier today, protesters started near the city-county building. Then they moved to the Monument Circle, walked to the State House all over downtown, and ended at Monument Circle. Now, IMPD were on foot and in patrol cars, making sure traffic did not get in the way. Many protesters I spoke with are pretty upset with how officers have been using force, especially when it's been peaceful, but that's not stopping them from demanding justice.
It's definitely way long overdue. You know, there's been countless examples of people who have succumbed to police brutality and violence, and we're frankly sick of it, and it's time that we enacted real lasting change, and that's why we're out here.
Peace is kept here. Again, curfew is set for 8 o'clock, and stay with us on air and online for the latest on this protest out here today. Reporting live in downtown, I'm Aaliyah Hodges for Wish TV, wishtv.com, and be sure to follow us on Facebook.
All right, Aaliyah, thank you. And to another developing story, the coroner's office confirms a former IU football player was shot and killed during Saturday night's violence.
Yeah, so sad. Chris Beatty had also won state football titles in Indianapolis. News 8's David Williams spoke to people who knew him well. David, good evening to you.
Tonight, this memorial stands on the very spot where 38-year-old Christopher Beatty died Saturday night.
My last real conversation with him was about 10:45 that evening. Just talking about our plans and how we both just going to chill and relax at home for the day.
According to IMPD, just before midnight, police found Beatty suffering from gunshot wounds here on Talbot near Vermont Street during the middle of the downtown riots. His best friend and IU football teammate Brandon Mosley is at a loss for words.
It shouldn't have never happened. We got to do better out here. It sucks, man. It hurts. This hurts.
Beatty graduated from Cathedral High School in 2000, then went on to play IU football till 2004. People who knew him tell me he was an all-around great guy with a warm personality.
Chris always smiled. He loved life. He loved life. He loved people. Had a lot of friends. Community leader, businessman. And he was even a part-time DJ because at the Colts games every Sunday I would see him. He's DJing the music on the field for the Colts game. So
Indianapolis Colts producer-reporter Lara Overton met Beatty years ago when they were student athletes at IU.
But I am hurting for his family, and I am sending them all of my prayers right now. It is incomprehensible. And
she says people naturally gravitated toward her friend Beatty, and within minutes of meeting him, you had a friend.
Just genuine, and he was the type of person who, when he asked, "How are you?" it wasn't a surface, just "How are you?" in passing. He genuinely wanted to know how you are.
Which makes Beatty's passing even harder for people who knew him.
He had an infectious personality. His smile was radiant. His heart was huge as all outdoors.
Mosley says Beatty recently created a mask company to help in the fight against COVID-19. Mosley is asking that anyone who saw anything or knows anything about this to call police. News 8 has reached out to IMPD to see if any arrests have been made. We are waiting to hear back. In downtown Indianapolis, I'm David Williams, Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook.
All right, David, thank you very much. IU head coach Tom Allen responding to Beatty's death tonight. In a statement, he said, in part, "I'm at a loss for words. Chris was one of our first alumni that displayed his unwavering support for what we are building here at Indiana and how we are building it. I'm so heartbroken for his family, and he will be deeply missed by all those that were blessed to call him a friend."
And several Black-owned businesses were not spared from this weekend's damage. News 8's Katira Winfrey joins us now with that part of our team coverage. Katira.
Kylie, the shock of seeing your business in shambles is a lot to take in, and one business owner I spoke to says there was some frustration at first, but understanding that there's a deeper problem and renewed community support cancels that out. This type of damage is reflected around downtown Indianapolis. It's a mirror image of other cities across the country after days of protests sparked by a Minneapolis man's death after an encounter with police.
I mean, I was shocked knowing that we're a black-owned business. I know and I understand the reason why they're protesting.
People damaged businesses of all kinds, including black-owned businesses like Michael's Soul Kitchen.
We're supposed to be opening this week, just doing more like a delivery and pickup. But with this happening, we will just push a few more days.
Romeo Gerson is the co-owner and says it was a shock to see it hit with $10,000 worth of damage. Despite the damage, he says the community is also making sure it's getting fixed.
We understand. We weren't actually the target. We will just move forward.
The Indy Black Chamber of Commerce says businesses like his are vital to the local black economy. George Middleton is a therapist and chamber board member. He watched the weekend's events unfold.
It's understandable. Again, I'm coming from a mental health perspective. You're seeing repressed generational effects of trauma.
And he says the chamber is moving a bit faster with plans that were already in the works to better assist black-owned businesses. The chamber will soon kick off its mental health disparities initiative and a 3-part series called The Need.
Cleaning up in our environment and addressing that's got to be one of our initiatives.
And you can find links for more information about the Indy Black Chamber of Commerce's initiatives inside this story on wishtv.com. Reporting in the studio, I'm Wish TV News 8's multicultural reporter, Katira Winfrey.
Katira, thank you very much. News 8's Sarah Hignite in downtown tonight. She talked with other affected business owners about their plans to move forward. Sierra.
Yeah, Phil, right now I'm live downtown near Market Street at the Circle, and at one point on Saturday night when these riots were happening, both the National Bank of Indianapolis and right here across the street at Huntington Bank, both of them windows smashed out of the building and lit on fire here at the same time as crowds filled the streets here in downtown. And it's the timing of these riots and everything that's happened damaging downtown that's making it even more difficult for business owners, because many of them had only been open for a few days due to the coronavirus pandemic before they've now had to close down again to start to clean up. Windows smashed and fires filled the streets over the weekend, and rioters vandalized businesses across Indianapolis. The severity of the damage ranges, allowing some businesses to still stay open while boarded up, but many of these doors are bolted shut. Now, businesses that have called Indianapolis home for more than 100 years are wondering if they'll be able to make it through another wave of uncertainty after barely staying afloat during the pandemic. While business owners are certainly upset by the damage left behind, people I spoke with today say that they aren't angry with protesters. They say what unfolded during the day was peaceful and well organized. Many say the groups that were rioting and looting into the overnight hours were not the same group protesting during the day.
After they gained access to my store, they were coming and going for hours, and I was watching the door swing open and close like this was a public restroom. I mean, people just came and they went as just freely as they wanted to.
And I want the protesting. I want people to be able to protest. I also don't believe that the protesters are the ones that are breaking my windows.
Businesses say that they're communicating with one another and city officials to discuss what they need and how they will begin to take steps forward. IMPD says that they're currently working to gather the numbers of just how many businesses were affected from the riots throughout the weekend. Reporting live downtown, I'm Sierra Hignite, Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook.
Oh, Sierra, so many boarded up windows. It's hard to find one that is still there. Thank you. Our coverage continues at 5:30 with how other cities across the country are dealing with the riots and protests. This right here is a live look in Washington, D.C. Just moments ago, we could see a few protesters kind of trickling through this line of police officers just standing there. It looks like it's kind of breaking apart. So it appears we're catching the tail end of this specific protest. Dale Forges will have much more on what's happening there at our nation's capital. We also have the latest on the newly released autopsy from George Floyd's family and the emotional plea from his brother to protesters today. That's all coming up in our next half hour.
Also coming up, Colts head coach Frank Reich weighs in on the death of George Floyd. AC has all the details on Reich's powerful message. Next at 5.
And a few spotty showers out there for you right now. We're comfortable this evening, enjoy, but tomorrow we bring heat and humidity, and by Wednesday, track showers and thunderstorms. That forecast coming up.
You're watching Wish TV, Indiana's only statewide TV news network.